Hello and welcome to this video on Manitoba's land transfer tax and how to calculate the land transfer tax on a property that was purchased. This is a lesson intended for students in Essential Math 40S. It goes with lesson 6 of your home finance unit. Land transfer tax is a tax that's paid in Manitoba whenever someone purchases a property. It's based on both the cost of the land that is purchased and any buildings on the land. The tax is to cover Manitoba's costs in transferring the deed for that property from the previous owner to the new owner. And land transfer tax is considered an additional cost when you look through your list of additional costs in lesson 6 of your home finance unit. Land transfer tax is calculated using a graduated percentage rate table, which is what causes a lot of the problems because most of the examples of calculating land transfer tax have several steps as you have to work your way through the table and all the different tax rates associated with the different levels. So we'll go through some examples and take a look at how that works. In example 1, we've got Ronald who's purchasing some land on which he plans to build a cottage. He paid $27,000 for the land. Calculate his land transfer tax owed to the province. Well, if you look at the table, and I've put the table down in the bottom here for reference, you can see that the first $30,000 of any property purchase in Manitoba has a tax rate of 0%, meaning you do not pay land transfer tax if you've paid less than $30,000 for your property. So since he paid only $27,000 for the land, his land transfer tax would amount to 0. That's a nice easy example, not realistic for something you're going to see on a test or an exam. So let's move on to a trickier example. In example 2, we've got the Hassan family who just bought a house for $125,000. Calculate their land transfer tax owing on the property. We have to work through a question like this step by step because of the different levels and different rates of tax at each level. So let's work through. The property originally was worth $125,000, but the first $30,000 of that is tax-free. So I'm going to deduct $30,000 off the value since the first $30,000 is not taxed. That leaves me with $95,000 in value to be taxed. And that takes care of the first row of the chart. The next $60,000 is taxed at 0.5%. So we look at the remaining value and we can see we have more than $60,000 remaining, so we're going to have to move even up past that point of the chart. But for this $60,000 we need to charge 0.5%. So I'm going to rate $60,000 as the next amount that I'm going to tax, and I'm going to times that by 0.5%. Remember, when you're working with percentages, you have to either divide the percentage by 100 or move the decimal 2 times to the left, giving you a percentage rate here of 0.005. And when you do 60,000 times 0.005 on your calculator, you should get $300. That's taking care of the next line of the chart, and it's taking care of $60,000 worth of the value of their house. So I'm going to subtract that again, and I'm left with $35,000 in remaining value. When I look at the chart, it says the next $60,000 is at 1%. That means up to $60,000. So I see we don't go over $60,000 here, so I don't have to worry about any more of the table. But this amount is going to be charged tax at a rate of 1%. So it's times 0.01. Again, moving the decimal 2 times to the left, and for that I get $350. That takes care of this, and indeed the rest of the table, because that is the remaining value of their house. It's all been taxed now at a rate of either 0 or 0.5 or 1%. So I add up the tax amounts and I get a total land transfer tax bill for this property of $650 that they would have to pay to the province. In the next example, we'll look at a question that works its way all the way through the table. So in this question, example 3, Cynthia just won the lottery and plans to purchase a house for $350,000. Calculate her land transfer tax that's owed on the property. So again, I'm going to start just by recording how much her property was worth. and the first 30,000 is tax-free. Doesn't matter how expensive the property is, the first 30,000 is always tax-free. So I subtract that, I get $320,000 of remaining house value to be taxed. Okay, that takes care of that first line. So the next 60,000 is taxed at 0.5%. Again, I'm way over 60,000, so I'm just going to write down the 60,000 that I'm going to tax here, and I'm going to tax that at 0.005, just like example 2. 60,000 times 0.005 is $300. I've taxed another $60,000 worth of their house, so I can get rid of that line, and I can subtract $60,000 from the value to find out the remainder that needs to be taxed. So I am now at $260,000. The next 60,000 is taxed at 1%. So again, I've got 60,000 here, which is going to be taxed at 1%, 0.01, and that is $600. I've now taxed another 60,000 out of their house value, so I can get rid of that line, and I can take off another 60,000 from their house value, leaving me with $200,000. It still needs to be taxed. Now it says the next $50,000 is taxed at 1.5%. I'm still over $50,000, so I'm going to put down the full 50,000 here. 1.5%, again, you have to be careful. This is a weird little number. It's 0.015. Once you divide 1.5 by 100 or move the decimal twice to the left. 50,000 times 0.015 is $750. So I've taken care of the next line. I'm going to subtract 50,000 out of the value of the house because I've taxed another 50,000 worth. That leaves me with $150,000 still remaining to be taxed. This also, if you add up 30 and 60 and 60 and 50, that adds up to $200,000, meaning I have taxed the first $200,000 of their house at these three different rates. Whatever's remaining, that's what this last line means. Anything else is taxed at 2%. So I take whatever's remaining and I times it by 0.02, and that gives me $3,000. That takes care of the last line of the table, and now I can add up all my taxes, and I get a total of $4,650 in land transfer tax owing on this property. It's about the hardest example we can make as it uses every level of the table. So remember, land transfer tax is payable on the total amount of your land and any buildings on the land that you purchase, right? And it's a graduated tax rate. So for math class, it means that there's very commonly more than one step before you can get to the final answer. We have some questions below on the web page that you could try to check your understanding and see how things go. And good luck with land transfer tax.